Welcome to California Free Radio. I'm Kurt English, and I'm here tonight with our co-host Scott Piotr. Mike Netter is on assignment today and will join us again next week. And Scott will be joining us momentarily, but we have a great guest tonight.
I'm here, at least for now.
Temporarily. But we have a great guest tonight. Brad Dacus is the founder and president of the Pacific Justice Institute. And some of you may not know of the Pacific Justice Institute, but they provide free legal services to people whose First Amendment rights are abused, their parental rights are abused, and they have a number of free resources on their website, pji.org. And during the course of our discussion of some nonsense going on in California, we want to highlight a couple of those resources. Well, welcome, Brad.
Oh, it's great to be on the program. Thank you, Kurt.
So let's just jump right into some substance here. There was a child taken by Child Protective Services, Shasta County, California, a girl, because the parents refused to give their girl testosterone.
Yeah.
So testosterone could castrate a child chemically, a girl.
Right.
Permanently.
So, Brad, talk to us about the legalities behind those kind of cases, and talk to us about the Pacific Justice Institute's free resources about how to deal with Child Protective Services in California.
Oh, you bet. This is such a tragedy that's taking place up in Shasta County, California. Unfortunately, it's taking place in places all across the country, but also in Northern California. It wasn't that long ago, we at Pacific Justice Institute had a case very, very similar to this, involving a young girl. She's an early adolescent. She told her friend,
it's either for sale that's 24 and down, or it's for rec.
And she was in Placer County, California, near Sacramento. And as it turns out, this young girl told her friend that she thought she might be a boy, and because of obviously the crazy input being provided by the public schools that she was attending. Well, the friend told the teacher told the school counselor called the social worker. Social worker went to the family and knocked on the door and says, "Hey, are you aware that your child, your daughter, sees themselves possibly as a male?" Parents said, "Oh, yes, we are, but we're a Christian family. We have the pastor at our church. We're going to be working with her and find out what's really underlying the issue here and deal with it." And the social worker said, "No, you're not. Here's a warrant. We're taking this girl from you." And the girl did not want to be taken. The girl wanted to stay with her parents. She knew her parents loved her. There was just, they had a different opinion on this. They took and put her in a foster home. And I cannot tell you what happened in the foster home, but it was not to the girl's advantage. Needless to say, exclamation mark. We fought for about 2 years. It took about 2 years for us to finally get that girl reunited with her family. At the last hearing, the girl told the judge, says, "Your Honor, can I just say what I want to say?" "Sure, go ahead." She said, "Well, I just want you to know that I don't even feel like I'm a boy anymore." And yet the state of California, with their policies, and the psychiatrist that was working with CPS, I call him a shrink because that's what he deserves in the context of this case, we're trying to get her injected as quickly as possible. They want to get guardianship and then very quickly injections, and then they wanted to start the masochistic cutting off of body parts of this precious, precious girl. The reality is that more than 7 out of 10 young people will, if just left alone, will no longer have that gender dysphoria condition if just simply left alone, much less getting good counseling that's positive and constructive. But our public schools across America are doing the opposite. And that's one reason why we at Pacific Justice Institute have a very, very, very valuable resource that every parent in America should get a hold of. And it's called 12 Steps to Protect Your Child from CPS, Child Protective Services. It's called different things in different states, social workers. And they can download that for free right now on our website, pji.org, pji.org.
Now, Brad, in these cases, people should understand they're castrating children chemically or surgically.
Yeah.
What is the federal government doing about this? Are they prosecuting people? We've talked about a situation where there's a hospital in Texas that entered into a settlement agreement with the U.S. Department of Justice, and they're now required to provide free detransitioning services for a period of years and to stop castrating children. There was another case that you and I have talked about in New York State where someone who was castrated or attempted because a child sued either the doctor or the hospital and won a $2 million either judgment or settlement. So it looks like these people are starting to be held accountable for their crimes against children.
Yeah, and you're right. That's the trend. We want to expedite that trend as much as possible and support that trend. And one way we're doing that is we have 37 offices. We have Pacific Justice Institute all across the country. We have 5 in California alone, but 37 across the country. In fact, I think that number's actually increased. I need to probably look and do some updating with that. But anyway, we want people to know that we do all our work without charge, and we're encouraging people out there. If they know of someone who has suffered because of the surgical procedure, the bad counsel they had, or the lack of really quality depth psychological counseling, or not being told the full ramifications, i.e. permanent sterilization, before having this procedure, they should contact us, because I think they have a great case. And I think we can sue these hospitals, these doctors, these psychiatrists, and bring them down to the mat where they belong.
And the teachers in the public schools that are facilitating this and manipulating the children.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Teachers as well. When a teacher engages in this kind of, behind the scenes grooming, if you will, of a child into or encouraging gender confusion, they're not doing their job as a teacher. In fact, what they're doing is outside the realm of being a teacher, and therefore subjects them potentially to being sued in their personal capacity for millions of dollars. And we will not hesitate to bring suits upon such individuals when we can find individuals willing to stand up to it.
Well, and as you know, Brad, in the civil rights federal statutes like 42 USC 1983 and others, the school district in that case cannot pay the legal fees of the teacher if the teacher sued personally, and the school district or the governmental agency cannot pay the judgment.
Right.
So it's designed to protect the civil rights of those who are wronged by government officials who are acting outside the scope of their duties as a government official. And clearly, if you're trying to manipulate a child, that is not within the scope of any government employee's job description.
Oh, you're absolutely right. In fact, we had recently in Texas, in Marin County, or Marin School District, the superintendent did something outrageous, a number of outrageous things, and we sued on behalf of some parents, very upset parents, and we got a judgment for $7.5 million. And here's the kicker, as they say in Texas. Here's the kicker. Most of that judgment was not against the school district. It went against the superintendent in his personal capacity. So it was an incredible judgment, and we took on the case. And hopefully this school district and others across the country will learn from it, not to ever bring retribution against children in retaliation for parents who are objecting to outrageous things that a superintendent or a teacher might be doing.
So if someone is listening and knows a family or is affected by this in their own family, does Pacific Justice Institute charge them legal fees to represent them?
We don't charge them a penny, not a penny. We do our work without charge, and it is a joy to do that. That's what we're about. That's why we have over 130 cases in active litigation. We help several thousand of requests for assistance every year, and it's all without charge. And people should not hesitate to go to our website, pji.org, if they see that there's something happening that they think is unconstitutional, it's not right, dealing with either religious freedom issues parents' rights issues against the government, or the sanctity of human life in some capacity.
Or free speech.
Yeah, in free speech, where people are expressing their beliefs and their convictions. Absolutely. They should not hesitate to contact us at our website, pji.org.
Well, and Brad, you know this as a lawyer. I know this as a lawyer. When there's a controversy, sometimes just a letter solves the problem or the threat of litigation. What percentage of the matters where you help someone without charge are resolved before any lawsuit is filed?
That's a great question. And I'm pleased to say that more than 9 out of 10 of the case matters that we get involved in to get resolved, we get them resolved without even having to file the lawsuit, which is really incredible. And part of that is the fact that we've been around since 1997. We have a very high success rate in our litigation when we sue, and we sue hard, and we put on we make the cases, and we go for the proper damages and punishment. So the other side knows that, and when they see our name on the letterhead, it really makes it a lot easier than many might suspect in getting matters resolved without actually having to file lawsuits. We have no desire, by the way, to file lawsuits. Like I said, we have over 130 lawsuits in active litigation, and a lot of those are dealing with multiple plaintiffs. So we're defending a lot of people at any given time. We don't need a lawsuit. That's what, so we work hard to put our clients' interests first, which is really to get matters resolved as quickly as possible in their best interests and for justice.
Well,
without appearing before a judge if you don't have to.
Exactly. So transitioning to another topic of transitioning, California taxpayers are now footing the bill for homeless illegal aliens in shelters to get sex change procedures, including breast implants. What's with that, Scott?
They don't even have to be in shelters. Are you kidding me? It's Governor Newsom's free boobs giveaway, taxpayer paid for, of course.
Now, Brad, talk to us about the legality of that. Are there some things that government is wasting money on and doing that are so objectionable that they could be liable for wasting funds? Or what's
well, governors and state legislatures can do foolish things with taxpayer money. They can pay for things that make absolutely no sense at all, so long as they have a rational basis to support it, which is very, very broad. They can do all kinds.
Which, as we know as lawyers, means it's almost impossible to overturn.
Exactly. So it's very difficult to challenge it. Now, if money is appropriated and approved by the legislature that is for X, but it's used for Y, then there's
like the fraudulent daycares and hospices.
Exactly, the massive fraudulent that is out there. And I recently interviewed Jenny Ray LaRousse, who is in charge of the director of the Cal Doge. Thank you. And was shocking, absolutely shocking to see what she's uncovered. And with regard to the mass of not just waste, but fraud, massive fraud, and not just the millions, but billions of dollars. And I think that's going to be a big issue, and more of an issue as we get closer to November, as it should.
All right. Well, this will outrage you. Brad, the California State Assembly just passed AB 1876, which forces insurance to cover puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgeries for children.
Yeah. And the passage of that is just another reason why we're going to have more people leaving, insurance, formal insurance companies, and opting for alternatives like Medishare or CHM or Samaritan, alternatives that are providing health care, sort of like a medical health sharing program, as opposed to the traditional insurance companies, because a lot of people, just as a matter of conscience, they don't want to financially support that, but that's what they're doing when they are, in fact, having traditional insurance is being mandated by the radicals in Sacramento, California, to fund things that the overwhelming majority of people in good conscience don't want to support.
Well, but Brad, could the federal government, the Department of Justice, sue and say that you're committing crimes against children, and maybe get a federal court to enjoin all this nonsense?
Well, I can say that if Congress passes a law banning this procedure with regards to minors, then it would be the supremacy clause would kick in under the Constitution, and the state would have to abide by that, irrespective of their own state statutes. And by the way, that's really not that unheard of, because we have countries like Sweden, Denmark, the UK, and others. I think even Germany and Europe, they've already banned these hideous procedures and the like with regard to minors in their countries. And these are progressive liberal countries. So, I would not be surprised. I think that's something we should be pushing for at a federal level for Congress to pass. The President Trump might try to issue an executive order that in some way would cut off funding for states that cross this line, and use that any federal funding in any capacity that supports such actions. So we'd have to wait and see. But that is one way that the president can take action, potentially even before Congress, if it's linked to federal funding in some capacity.
Well, you've heard about the controversy of boys and girls sports, and just this past weekend there was a track meet with the CIF, the state championships, and a boy got faster times than a girl, although he was competing in girls sports. And it's been very controversial. The Trump administration is suing California over this, and that lawsuit is ongoing. It's in process, but California is ignoring Title IX and law, in my view. But let's talk about the legal issues here. One is, I would think that the girl who's cheated out of a championship would have damages for a potential loss of scholarship, for fraud against the organizers of the event. When it's called girls sports and you let boys compete, you're fraudulently inducing girls to compete in that event, potentially. If anyone travels across state lines because of that fraud, now it's a federal issue. What do you see the legal issues here?
Yeah, and I think what you articulated actually makes a lot of sense. The president has already made it very clear. He had issued an executive order in this regard, and only 2 states are not abiding by it right now, as I understand, California, and the other was Minnesota. No surprise. But the fact is, they're risking getting federal funds cut off completely with regards to these programs and federal funding. Because of that, the good news, and here's where we have been on the offense at Pacific Justice Institute to deal with this. Not only, of course, do we offer to represent any girl in this situation without charge, but we've actually worked aggressively to get 6 states, not 1, not 2, 6 states, right from the get-go, to pass laws saying boys cannot compete in girls' sports. One of those was Idaho. Another one that we worked with was West Virginia. Many states have copied this. Well, they were sued and challenged on the grounds that they can't do this. This is discrimination against gender-confused kids. Who have they have the ability to compete in their biological sex, races, but that's beside the point. I guess that's truth. We don't have room for that. But as it turns out, these lawsuits were filed. It went to the United States Supreme Court, and many people think the Supreme Court is going to rule that states have a right to pass laws protecting girls and girls' sports. I'm going out on a ledge here, and I'm saying I think it's going to be broader than that. I really do, Scott and Kurt. I think we're going to see the Supreme Court. There's a good chance they're going to rule based on Title IX, federal civil rights statute, that not only states, they can do this. Yes, they can pass laws protecting girls, but I'm going to say they must do it under Title IX, and their failure to do so violates federal civil rights statute Title IX, and all 50 states are bound to comply with Title IX. So we'll see what happens, but we know it's going to be a victory. It's just how deep and how broad of a victory is it going to be to protect our young girls in sports throughout America.
Scott, what do you think?
I'm sorry. If the Democratic Party can't tell the difference between boys and girls, they need to go. They're just, I'm sorry. There's no excuse for that except to declare it evil.
There was a poll today among men. Only 17% of American men have a favorable view of the Democrat Party. Wonder why.
That's only because they're married to liberal women.
They're henpecked. Well, here's another interesting case. The Supreme Court just ruled 9-0, conservative justices, liberal justices, in favor of free speech. New Jersey, Brad, trying to force pregnancy centers that treat women in need to disclose their donors, presumably to be harassed and doxxed. And the Supreme Court said in a 9-0 unanimous decision that those pregnancy centers had a free speech to keep their donors confidential.
Yes.
Gentlemen, what say you?
Well, I will tell you that we at Pacific Justice Institute, we're very familiar with this because we actually filed an amicus brief in support of these women's centers, these pro-life women's centers in New Jersey. And so we weighed in on this. And it's a very important case because it's not just impacting these clinics in New Jersey. It's impacting all such clinics across the country who are in blue states where governors and attorney generals are trying to bully them, harass them, just give them lots of requests for documents, information, to try to see if they can come up with something to sue them with and to try to punish them over. The reality is the Supreme Court got this right, that the government cannot bully and ask for private donor information when it's the purpose is very clear. It's simply to harass these organizations and to prevent individuals from supporting these organizations for fear that they will then be bullied and harassed by bureaucrats in their state and attorney general for who knows what. So it's a very important case. And I want to say it's even really actually broader than just pro-life women's clinics. I believe this is going to be a precedent to protect ministries, nonprofit organizations, especially conservative nonprofit organizations, from these kind of outrageous bully tactics from blue state governors and blue state attorney generals across the country. It's a very significant decision. In fact, it was 9-0. I was surprised about that. I thought it'd be more like 6-3 or 7-2. But even Sotomayor and Justice Jackson, even they saw how critical this was to maintaining a free society and freedom of association under the First Amendment of the Constitution.
Scott, were you surprised it was a 9-0 decision?
Oh, I'm shocked. I mean, Ketanji Brown Jackson doesn't know the difference between men and women, and she decided in our favor. Which disqualifies her from being a judge, but evidently the Democrat senators believe that's okay, and they confirmed her.
Well, guys, the people watching our program are probably getting ready for their barbecue over Memorial Day weekend. And yes, we want to honor this Memorial Day weekend those who fought and died in our wars, all the way back to the Revolutionary War, and honor their memories. But there's going to be some barbecuing this week, except, gentlemen, some people that want to ban backyard barbecuing on certain days, I guess for climate change reasons. Scott, what's with that? Are they bah humbug, no fun people, or what's the deal here?
Yeah, they want to control everything, of course. I give the example of this giant barbecue, but the reality is that, they're using climate change to control us. And now they're reaching into backyard barbecues, and they believe that barbecues are, I have to admit, they've done a good job of regulating air pollution in Southern California. Now, they've done it in a very heavy-handed way, and it's cost all of us as consumers literally thousands, if not more, dollars, right? Tens of thousands of dollars that we wouldn't have had to pay had they come up with another solution. But that being said, now they're setting their sights on the barbecues because that's one of the few places left that they can go after that they think will have a significant impact. But I got to tell you, does barbecue smoke bother any of you guys?
I love it.
No.
The smell of red meat burning on the grill, I mean, that's perfect.
Oh.
So,
it's American. Yeah.
So I believe they've gone a bridge too far.
Scott, what do you think the politics of this are going to be? Do you think that people are going to get angry and they're going to, one, are they going to pass it? And two, are people going to cooperate?
No, I think that people have had enough. I think that's evidenced by the LA mayoral race and the traction that Spencer Pratt is getting. The people, have been told, we can't do anything about the homelessness. And Spencer Pratt comes in and goes, bull crap, I'm going to do something about it. And I think that they've gone a bridge too far. They went, I think, a bridge too far with the whole trans thing. People that kind of acquiesced on the whole LGBT stuff and, if they just want to, get married, it doesn't bother me, what the heck, until they started indoctrinating students with it. And then they didn't notice, they didn't care. But as soon as they start changing their kids' sex and teaching that you can change and teaching that it's a choice, parents are kind of like, what the heck is going on here? Enough's enough. And I think the barbecue is going to be the same thing. I think it's a bridge too far. You start taking away people's barbecues, they will revolt, even if they're liberals.
So, Brad, what do you think the legal issues here about a barbecue? If I have a barbecue, I don't think it's anybody else's business what I do in my own house.
I'm going to say that right up front.
Well, we got to add that, Brad. We got to add that.
Yeah, but I can say this. I think the reason it's not in the Constitution, because this is probably one of those things like the right to breathe, the right to hunt, the right to fish. I mean, I think these are just assumed. And the founding fathers, when they wrote the Constitution, they said, there's going to be some things that are just obvious no-brainers that we shouldn't have to articulate. And we can be here all day talking about the right to sit down, the right to stand. So I think, so the founding fathers were like, well, surely, subsequent generations will understand that there's just some things that are just, given no-brainers that are just assumed to be a part of our basic, DNA as being human beings, and being able to cook as we wish in a safe manner is a part of that. These backyard barbecue grills are made to be used safely, and they meet codes, and so I think that interesting issue is, as I can see coming out legally, might be to what extent are they able to enforce it? If it's in your backyard, in order for the government to be able to get on your property, they have to have a warrant. And I just can't have a hard time seeing law enforcement, everyone going to the court, getting a warrant to go into to someone's backyard on the suspicion that they're barbecuing. I think the barbecue is going to be over by the time they get that kind of a warrant to enter the property. I don't think they can.
Oh, but Brad, it'll still be warm.
Well, I don't know. Our courts, they do move slowly, but I think that it's going to be more of a threat than something that we're going to see actually implemented. But just the fact that they're making that threat, I think is going to resonate. And like you mentioned before, I think the LA race is one for mayor that we could see that play out. One of the candidates, one of the two Democrat candidates, came out and just says that this is what they're in favor of. They're for getting rid of the barbecue and making it illegal in people's backyards. That's going to backfire. And the average person in California, Republican, Democrat, either independent, they to some degree they want their freedom. They really do. And so I think this is going to not be. I don't think it's going to be enforced, and if it is enforced, it's just going to ignite more rage and even more people leaving the state of California, and for good reason.
We want to give a shout out to Magdalena, who's on KPSFDB Radio on Twitter. Music A. Maria. Magdalena, thanks for tuning in. All right, there's apparently a problem. There was a Fire Aid concert after the Palisades fire that raised $100 million, and Congressman Kevin Kiley in California says that money was laundered to nonprofits instead of people who were supposed to get it. Scott, what are the political issues? And then Brad, what are the legal issues with that?
It's like, no, may it never be. Of course, it was illegally distributed to NGOs. Part of it was that almost $4 million went into the First Partners NGO nonprofit.
Who's the First Partner? Who's that?
Jennifer Newsom, the wife of Gavin Newsom.
Oh, how convenient, Scott.
Because she can't call herself a wife or the First Lady of California. She's just a partner.
Or Mrs. Newsom, her name.
Or Mrs. Newsom. No, but $4 million plus supposedly has gone into her NGO. And after that was brought up, because it was on the Fire Aid, or I don't know, the NGO website of the governor's office, and they took her NGO off that list after a little bit of an outcry. It didn't say that she didn't get the money. They just don't show it on the list anymore. So, yeah, I think it needs to blow up. I think Jennifer Newsom needs to go to jail along with her husband, and for stealing our money. That when they did that concert, if you remember, they promised that all of the money would go directly to fire victims. And Spencer Pratt's been one of the guys that have really been working hard to uncover where did the heck the money go to, because nobody that he knows of the 7,000 homes that burned down in the Palisades got a dime. So he's been
Brad,
checking.
What are the legal issues here? I'm sure this is you're like shooting fish in a barrel on this one.
Yeah. So entities can raise money for causes, and they can say, generally, we're raising this money to help people who need help, and this, what happened in Palisades was terrible, but we're raising money to help just people in general who need help, and like people in Palisades. They could probably get away with not putting money to the people of Palisades, because what they just said was not just the Palisades. They were very, very broad in general. My understanding, though, as it's been described, is what was alleged was specifically that the money raised would go to help people victimized by the Palisades fire, specifically those who had their homes burned down. And if they made that representation, and yet that money did not go there, but went somewhere else, and not just incidentally, but materially, substantially even, then those individuals who could have been beneficiaries to it, i.e. people like the gentleman who's running for mayor of Los Angeles and others, they could be able to arguably bring an action against those people for fraud. And even more importantly, you could even potentially have criminal prosecution for fraud. We are seeing just incredible prosecution from the Department of Justice, coming down and pouncing on not just waste, but outright fraud. And I think the American people are cheering it on. And J.D. Vance has that as a responsibility. I think he's going to carry through. Whether he carries it through to this particular incident, I'm not sure. But the potential is clearly there based on the principle of misrepresentation and fraud with regards to donor funds.
Yeah, I hear that Bill Asali, our U.S. attorney on the southern region here in California, said that he doesn't have enough prosecutors to prosecute all the fraud.
Wow.
Now he's talking about the daycare fraud, the hospice fraud, the Jennifer Newsom fraud. I mean, the fraud list just is so long. They don't have enough prosecutors.
Brett, here's a really concerning issue. There was a kid going on Microsoft Chat GPT. That's an artificial intelligence program. And he was depressed or had some problem, and the artificial intelligence engine was coaching the child how to commit suicide, and even praised his noose during the course of this, and the kid committed suicide. So, Mr. Attorney, what liability does Microsoft have here?
Yeah, this is, make no mistake, this is a new area of law. So, AI is new and its function is new. And the responsibility of a provider of AI with regard to this kind of information, has yet to be tested. It should be tested, and entities like Microsoft and others, I believe, should be held accountable when they do not responsibly put in the proper safeguards, i.e., AI is not to ever encourage suicide with anyone or by anyone. I think that needs to be addressed, and I think they need to be held responsible for it. But like I say, this is a new area of law, and we are going to see this litigated out, and we'll have to see where it lands. But I believe
let's suppose, Brad, there's no legislation. Obviously, in my opinion, there should be legislation to ban AI engines from suicide. That's a no-brainer to me. Just under traditional legal standards, is it negligent to do this? Is it reckless?
Yes. So, okay. My point on that, and that's why I say I would favor such a decision against Microsoft, because the general rule, if someone sells a product or a service, they have a responsibility not to engage in negligence, and then when it comes to ensuring that it is reasonably safe, and in particular, they need to take measures to counteract that which is foreseeable with regards to possible harm and impact. So let's say you're selling a chainsaw and there's no safety guards on it. You can say, well, it's pretty foreseeable that without the safety guards, that someone's going to get something cut off. So there'd be a responsibility, there'd be a liability there. In the same way, I think with AI, I think it's very foreseeable that someone would use it with regards to issues that may harm their body or kill themselves. And it's not a unreasonable measure or even a financially substantially burdensome measure, for that matter, for Microsoft to provide that kind of protection. And also, once again, they not only didn't provide that protection, they didn't provide any warnings that such harm could happen through the use of their AI and their search engines. And I think that such a warning would be insufficient. They need to actually provide the protective boundaries to protect particular young people, minors, but even adults as well, for that matter. Suicide's illegal. Someone committing suicide is committing crime. Microsoft has a duty, I believe, to take reasonable measures to prevent such criminal actions taken that are foreseeable to harm people.
Well, you'll find this interesting, counselor. Typed into Grok, if an AI engine coaches a child into committing suicide, is the AI company liable? The answer is yes. An AI company can be held civilly liable in such a scenario, particularly involving a child. And then they talk about, it says multiple lawsuits challenge AI chatbots contributing to suicides. I didn't realize there was multiple. They talk about a case in Florida, another case in California. Wow. Okay. So we hit on something here.
Yeah. I think it's important for people to, if they have this happen to one of their loved ones, they shouldn't, just brush it aside. They need to find out why their loved one committed suicide, and they need to check and look at their searching and how they used AI. And if that is discovered, then they need to seek legal counsel on possibly filing a lawsuit against that entity providing that kind of negligent, irresponsible, and harmful counsel.
All right. Well, we have lots of legal issues tonight, so we've got the guy to talk about it. There's an issue of gerrymandering, meaning drawing districts to get a particular outcome. And for a number of decades, there has been racial gerrymandering where they would try to create a majority district for Black or Hispanic or Asian or some racial group with the goal to electing someone of that race in that congressional seat or that state legislative seat. Now, the Supreme Court just ruled that that's illegal under the Voting Rights Act. And now different states are redrawing their districts to get rid of the racially based gerrymandering. But the guy who drew the Proposition 50 districts in California admitted he used race as a... So what's next, Brad? Do you think we're going to have a lot of more lawsuits? Where does this go?
Well, we're going to have a lot more redistricting, and those lawsuits filed will not be based, or really can't be based on race, unless you can prove that the other side deliberately was trying to get rid of a certain race or promote a certain race. I think those doing redistricting are going to be very careful. Their end goal, by the way, is not race. Their end goal is to have a political advantage for their party that has control of their state legislature and governor. That's what the issue is, and the Supreme Court allows for political preference to take place in the negotiating of how congressional districts and districts should be drafted and designated. So I think what we're going to see is a lot more districts, redrafted as they should be, so that they don't reflect a racist intent and racist outcome. It's a violation of the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause. And so I think we're going to see that. The majority of the Supreme Court, I think, is very clear on that. And, the sad thing is, I wish we had some kind of rule in the Constitution that maybe mandated that if a voting group of a state has a certain percentage in terms of a political party, that they would be allowed something like that percentage of congressional districts. It might be nice to have something like that, but we don't. And since we don't, this is left up to the states, and the states cannot use race, nor should they use race, not if we respect the Constitution and the 14th Amendment.
Scott, what do you think?
I think it's ironic how these states in the Northeast, Massachusetts, 36% Republican, 0 Republican seats. Right. Connecticut, 42% Republican, 0 Republican seats. And Maine, 46%, 0. New Mexico, 46% Republican, 0. New Hampshire, 46 Republican, 0. Rhode Island, 42% Republican, 0. The point is that these blue states have been gerrymandering Republicans out of existence. Republicans in those states have no voice in Congress. And then they have the nerve to whine when red states do it back to them.
Right.
I'm sorry. I have no sympathy for these clowns.
Right. And I want to say, I think Scott hit on something really important. It has been happening for a long time. Those who've been the worst, statistically, irrefutably, have been the Democrats. I mean, it's not even up for negotiation. It's been, and I love those examples you gave, very blatant, outrageous gerrymandering taking place, and it's completely silencing Republicans in those states from having their voice heard in Congress if they live in those states at all. So they are the worst. And I like that picture there. It shows New England. I'm looking for the red congressional seat. I just don't see it there, but I know there's Republicans there because we know that Republicans have occupied the governorship. I think of New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine. We have a Republican senator. So we know that it's outrageous, and we need to.
But gentlemen, people have a remedy. It's called moving. And they're doing that from blue states to accelerating. And Democrats are concerned that after 2030 census, which will not include illegal aliens, Biden won't be president, that there will be a shift where California, New York, Illinois lose seats, and Tennessee, South Carolina, Florida, Texas gain seats in red states that will be redistricted by red legislatures. I mean, Florida went from hanging chads in a 50-50 state in the 2000 election to a solid Republican state now.
But let's be clear about this racial gerrymandering. So what happened is the Democrats basically crafted case law through multiple lawsuits showing that, hey, if you got this black district in, name the city, in Alabama, Montgomery, and all of a sudden the courts sit there and say, oh, you drew those districts so that no black person would be represented. And now what we want to do is we want to force you into drawing a district so that it's a primarily black district. So they draw it based on racial lines, and then they can elect a black congressman. So what that was the way that the Democrats prevented what you see on the screen here with all of the blue states just getting rid of every single Republican congressman that they had so that they are only Democrat representatives. They, in effect, were using that law in red states to get districts that they wouldn't otherwise have. So they were using the law to their advantage, for their political advantage. And the irony or the hypocrisy of it was that there were black seats where Democrats were the elected congressmen, and yet they had white congressmen. I mean, if the Democratic Party
like
was
Memphis, Tennessee, Steve, I think Cohen is his name, is an example of one of those. And he's mad because he's getting
had a primarily black district, but they had a white Democrat congressman. And so if they were really concerned about race, why didn't the Democratic Party put up a black person to be their congressman? Because they don't care about race. They care about Democrats. And the Democrat Party cares only about power because they hate America, and they don't care what it takes to get it. And so they use blacks, and the way that they have in the past, typically voted 90+% Democrat to kind of guarantee them a Democrat seat where they wouldn't otherwise have it.
Now, Scott, I got to correct you. That was not the case in the 2024 election. More black men voted Republican in 2024.
Yeah,
especially
and it's
younger black men who are not.
And it's a growing percentage.
Democrat. Yeah, younger black men are not solidly a Democrat voting bloc anymore like they have been.
Well, look, the Democratic Party is the party of slavery. They tried to start a new country totally based on slavery. They were the party of Jim Crow. They were in the party of poll taxes and keeping black people from voting. They were the party of racial segregation, segregated but equal, separate but equal. They are the party responsible for that. I don't understand why black people vote for a single Democrat. Do you know that we had a black Speaker of the House already? You wouldn't know that if you listened to the news, obviously. We had a black Speaker of the House, a Republican, right after the Civil War. So the Democrats can no longer claim, hey, the first black Speaker of the House. That happened as a Republican back in the 1800s. So if there's a, I mean, for crying out loud, the Republican Party was founded on the idea and the principle of getting rid of slavery. We had almost 1 million people die in the Civil War to end slavery. Name one other country on earth where that happened. And yet we were still one of the very first nations to abolish slavery in the world. So, hello. So what's wrong with this picture?
And slavery still exists around the world today. Democrats don't want to talk about that inconvenient truth either.
Right. And in fact, most of the countries that perpetrate that are Muslim.
Right.
All right, let's switch gears, guys. Let's talk about the rights and privileges of illegal aliens and what's legal. The city of El Cajon, California, which is kind of a border city east of San Diego, as I recall, has sued the California Attorney General over the illegal alien limitations. California tells its police departments and its jails, you can't cooperate with the federal government on immigration enforcement. And the city of El Cajon says, well, wait a minute. that we're cooperating with the law, enforcing the laws of our land. Brad, what are the legal rights? Can a state tell its state and local agencies you can't cooperate with the federal government to enforce federal law?
Yeah, this is an interesting area of law, but basically the answer is that I think El Cajon is going to win, and in terms of their right to be able to comply with federal law enforcement, work with federal law enforcement, it's to be mandated to effectively aid and abet criminal activity against federal officers who are trying to enforce the federal law against criminal activity is not just absurd. I don't think it's protected, and I think that El Cajon is going to come out on top. And even the concept of what you call sanctuary cities. These are aiding and abetting cities of criminal activity, and it is. We know of one judge out of Minnesota, I believe it was, or Wisconsin, not that long ago, that she's been criminally prosecuted because she was deliberately taking illegals after a hearing and having them escape out the back door, so federal law enforcement wouldn't be able to arrest them. She was aiding and abetting, and she was properly prosecuted and convicted for it, as I understand. I think that we need to see more of that to send a loud message to local governments. If you follow this direction, you're not going to escape criminal prosecution under federal law.
Scott, what do you think?
Well, I think that Bonta will file another lawsuit. I think he'll lose the lawsuit. I think that he files the lawsuit to try and present, a united face. But face it, it's a lot of it has to do with, it's Trump, right? Let's say that Biden was still president and he changed ICE's name to National Immigration Customs Enforcement. So it's now NICE. People will probably love it, right?
You got an idea there, Scott. We got to go to NICE.
And I'm not the originator of that idea, but it's all in the fact that most of them suffer from TDS. But look at how many people would be alive today if we had taken illegal aliens and deported them rather than release them back into the population, shall we speak, where they went on to commit other heinous crimes, including murders. You've got easily a dozen people that would be alive today had California not done that. I mean, Brad, if heaven forbid, let's use my wife as an example. If she were to have been murdered by an illegal alien, do I have a cause of action against Sacramento and Newsom and Bonta for preventing the local police from being able to deport a guy that later turned out to be the murderer?
That's an interesting case. I don't know the answer to that right off the bat, but I can say that if they knowingly and willingly let someone go who they knew or had good reason to know had committed such a crime in the past, and they let this person go, or they knew this person was at risk, I think that would be an interesting case. I don't know of a case that's been able to be successful in that area before. But then again, how much in America's history do we have local governments and state governments deliberately aiding and abetting criminal activity at the total, disregard for the safety and health of their local constituents?
So what difference tell me the difference? In the Civil War, the states seceded because they disagreed on slavery. They basically said, we're not going to abide by those laws. What difference is that now from the states now saying, hey, we're not going to abide by those laws regarding ICE? I mean,
yeah.
Well, even a better question. If they get to pick and choose what laws they follow, I want to have equal rights under the law. I want to pick and choose the laws I get to follow. Let me list some that I don't want to follow anymore. I don't want to pay federal income tax. I don't want to comply with any gun restrictions. I don't want to comply with the speed limit. I mean, aren't you going to have chaos, Brad, if everybody gets to pick and choose the laws they follow?
Well, and you're absolutely right. That's what happens when we say, well, yeah, they're illegal, but we're going to make an exception. Well, okay, how about the person who robs a bank? You're going to make an exception there, or someone who speeds 100 miles an hour on the freeway? You're going to make an exception? Or do we have laws that are to be equally applied to everyone? And I will say this. If you could show that an action by a state agent, say of a state government, law enforcement, police, whatever, let someone go who was in violation of a federal crime, or they knew that this person was a serious risk, and they effectively aided and abetted by letting that person go, could there be a federal action against those individuals who are aiding and abetting effectively criminal activity? And I would say yes, potentially. But J.D. Vance has his hands full. I know they're trying to shore up their staff and their resources, but they are overwhelmed with the degree of not just waste and fraud, but also governments, local governments, who are effectively aiding and abetting criminal activity at the expense of innocent individuals. I think this is also another reason it's important for people to find out what local government they have. Like, for example, I live in Orange County, California. During the pandemic, the sheriffs in Orange County didn't arrest people for getting together and having their hair cut and eating in a restaurant. But right next to it, Los Angeles County law enforcement was, putting people behind bars, prosecuting, fining the people for the exact same actions, and were very, very oppressive and disrespectful of individual rights in the Constitution.
Well, they tried to prosecute churches for opening, and John MacArthur sued them and won.
Well, and we at Pacific Justice Institute, we defended 5 churches ourselves in Santa Clara County or in San Jose, and we prevailed. We went all the way to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said, Governor Gavin Newsom, what you're doing is unconstitutional. Open those churches and synagogues now, and he did. So sometimes we have to take on cases, and we have to take it to the Supreme Court. But it's something that people are looking at now more than ever, not assuming that their county or their state is going to respect the Constitution just the same as other counties and states. They now realize that's not the case, and they need to really investigate before deciding where they're going to live here in the United States of America. Something that I never thought I would have to recommend for people to do, but it's practically speaking, it's where we are, especially up to the point where we're going to have prosecution, played out. We still haven't had it fully played out, and I just hope we have the right person elected in 2028 to continue the anti-fraud, anti-aiding and abetting of criminal activity that was so massive and rampant during the Biden administration in particular.
Well, I have
go ahead.
Pictures of, I have the pictures of Rob DeSantis, governor of Florida, and Virginia governor, the liar, Swalberger, or whatever her name is.
Abigail Spamberger.
Swalwell, Spamberger, these names get so confusing sometimes. But the way that they both approach this now, of course, Spamberger is going the California route and making it illegal for the local police to cooperate. And in Florida, they're actually ordering the police to cooperate, and they have probably shipped out more illegal aliens than any other state. They were impacted by a lot, not as much as Texas, not as much as California, not as much as Arizona and New Mexico, but they still were one of the border states that were impacted a lot. And DeSantis has done a really good job of getting rid of it. If an illegal alien is looking for a safe place to be, he's not looking at Florida.
That's right.
All right, guys, as we wrap up here, one more illegal alien legal issue. In California, they tried to pass a law banning ICE agents from wearing masks, and a federal appeals court blocked that.
They passed the law.
Yeah, blocking agents from wearing masks. They passed the law.
It's unconstitutional.
The appeal court blocked it. So, Brad, tell us about those legal issues.
Yeah, it's unconstitutional. The supremacy clause, federal government, federal agency officers cannot be controlled by state and local agencies on matters such as that. So that's not going to go anywhere. That's pure political posturing. And
right. They actually got a judge to stay that so that it won't go into effect, right?
Yeah.
All right.
I think it's ridiculous.
We want to thank our audience. Wow, this time has gone fast. Brad, thank you for your cogent analysis and helping us out here. We'll be back next week at 6:30, and Mike Netter will be off assignment and back. For those of you interested in the election in June, please get your ballots in. If your neighbors need some help them with the candidates. There's some voter guides that are available at TaxFighter 7, right, Scott?
Yes, you can go to. In fact, I'll put it on the bottom of the screen. But the one of the things that we're going to talk about next week, we're going to have Gloria Romero on. She's the candidate for lieutenant governor. She has a unique story. She was a lifelong Democrat. She was actually the president pro tem of the Senate in the state government as a Democrat, and she felt that the Democratic Party has left her so bad. She's now become a Republican, and some of the things like school choice and other things are some of the things that drove her on that. And we're going to have her as a guest next week, next Thursday at 6:30. So make sure you tune in for that.
And if you live in eastern Los Angeles County or western San Bernardino County, you can vote for Mike Netter for state senate, and he'll be on your ballot. You've gotten your ballot in the mail. If you have not gotten your ballot in the mail, contact your registrar of voters, because they were sent out in early May, 2 weeks ago.
And if you haven't gotten your ballot, you can show up at a voting place and tell them who you are. You don't even have to show voter ID. You can tell them you're Brad Dacus if you want, and you can go ahead.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
And you can just show up at any voter place. In fact, anywhere in your county, you can show up at a vote center. The vote centers open up 5 days before the election. So they're actually not opening up this weekend, but the following weekend, they're going to be open, I think, starting Friday before the election. And so you can show up there, even if you didn't get anything mailed to you, just tell them your name and remember, vote early, vote often. But yes.
That's the Democrat way, Scott.
Oh, man. Well, vote early and vote Republican. How's that sound? So I've got a picture of Spencer Pratt in his Airstream trailer behind me. He's got a good shot. He's going to be in the top 2, and it'll be a runoff between him and Karen Bass, and it's going to be a cat fight. I think people are starting to come alive with this campaign. I think other politicians who have been kind of timid in talking and bringing about these issues are saying the heck with that, but I'm not going to be timid anymore. And I think you've got a lot of that from the old movie network. I'm not going to take it anymore. And I think the voters are starting to rise up, and we can change the voters in one election. We can change who represents us. Every single member of the state assembly is up for re-election. There's 80 members. Right now, there are what, 65 Democrats, 64 Democrats. They've got a supermajority, almost 70%. I think actually it's closer to 60. But we can change that. All we have to do is throw 22 or 23 Republicans in there, and all of a sudden it's a Republican-led chamber. So we don't have to put up with this crap anymore. We can change out the dirty laundry, meaning Democrat legislators and governor and lieutenant governor and all the state offices. So get out and vote, and don't sit on your butt. You have the power to change things.
All right, we'll see you next Thursday at 6:30 on California Free Radio. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
They said trust the experts while they locked up the town. Gave us 12 more genders. Took our paychecks down. Flag on the porch. They call you extreme while they cash big checks.